So this week's topic, I'm not sure what to name it exactly. Um, you could call it the struggle between good and evil. You could call it how to win the fight of between good and evil. You could call it a lot of different things. I think I'm being a little overly dramatic in terms of what I'm speaking to, and yet it is a dramatic battle, or at least it feels that way to me. And this battle between good and evil is not outside ourselves, it's within here. The one thing I have learned, and I've heard a lot of people speak to the fact that they don't, positive thinking and getting into your mind takes you out of your heart. So it's really important to stay in your heart, particularly when you have your feelings, because people want to feel their feelings. And I am totally okay with that. In fact, I am there with that. What we want to do is feel our feelings. But here's the thing. While we're feeling our feelings, there's always something going on in our minds. There's always some words, some images, something that's going on in our minds. And so as much as we want to talk about being fully in our hearts, it's not as if our mind is dead in those moments, stops working. Maybe, we all have those moments of elation where actually our minds do stop for a moment. But for the most part, no matter what it is we're feeling, good, bad, or ugly, our minds are right there along with us. So the question is, what is our minds doing during those times? And if what our minds is doing is saying stuff that puts us down, or puts down any situation out there, that is what I am labeling as evil. If what our minds is doing is loving ourselves and loving whatever it is that we are having feelings about, that is what I am calling good. So how do you win the battle of good and evil? Some will just say love. Love is the answer. Love is the answer to everything. And it is. But how? How do you do that in the midst of being upset about something, in the midst of feeling like bad about yourself, in the midst of feeling bad about anything? How do you do that? How you do that is get a hold of your mind. Now you may say when I say that, get a hold of your mind, that wait a minute, that would pull me out of my heart. But I'm here to tell you that if your mind is saying stuff to you when you're in your heart, that is not loving, you're in your mind already anyway. Feeling your feelings is not separate from your mind doing whatever it's doing. And so we call this science of mind, and there are lots of folks who think, oh, science of mind is all so heady. It's not heart-based. But what is heart-based? Heart-based is when our heart is open. Well, when our heart is open, our mind is saying positive things to us anyway, positive things about life anyway. When our heart feels hurt, that is the time where we need to get a hold of ourselves in terms of our mind and what it is saying so that it's not feeding the hurt. Because it has been my personal experience that 9 out of 10 times, if I feel hurt and I leave my mind unchecked, what it is doing is feeding the hurt and making me feel more hurt. So it has been my spiritual practice in those moments to ask myself are these thoughts loving to me? Are these thoughts loving to whatever the object of my upset is? Are these thoughts loving? Now I can feel how I'm feeling. I can feel angry. I can feel upset. But I still want to make sure that what my mind is doing is not adding to it. And that's what happens most of the times. I mean, don't you have that experience yourself? All of a sudden you're upset about something and you're talking negatively about whatever that something is you're upset. Or you're talking negatively about yourself when you're upset. It's one or the other, usually. If you're one of these brilliant people who can have upset and yet still have your mind say the most wonderful things about life, then Yay. Yay. And you know what? I have moments where that has actually happened for me. But to say that that is my general way of being would be an exaggeration of the process and practice of which I am involved. So I am here to tell you it's worth it. It's worth challenging those thoughts. Does it pull you out of your heart? No, it actually doesn't, because if you're upset, your heart has closed anyway. If you're feeling pain, that is not open-hearted. Now, am I saying cut off the pain? Absolutely not. You get to feel your pain. You get to grieve. You get to feel any upset you're having. But what are you saying about it? Because what you're saying about it is the big deal. Have your pain. What are you saying about it? My big thing this whole year has been about loving myself and making sure that whatever's going on, what I'm doing is loving myself. So when I am in upset, as soon as I finally get a hold of myself enough, the first question I ask myself is, am I loving myself now? Am I loving myself right now? That's the first thing I ask myself. The second thing I ask is, am I being loving to the object of my upset? Now, my wife will tell you that there are times when I am not very good at not being, when I am not good at being loving towards the object of my upset. And yet, by asking the questions, I find that I grow more into that. It is my intention to be loving and kind, irregardless of what is going on in my life. That is my goal. And I highly recommend that you hold that goal as well. Loving and kind no matter what. No matter what. This is in our pervasiveness. This is in our power. There may be things going on. Lots of folks talk about 100% responsibility, that we're never victimized. And you know what? I used to think that way, and now I don't care anymore. That is not what's important to me. It doesn't matter whether I am victimized or not victimized by what's going on outside of myself, but I know with absolute certainty that I am in charge of what's going on in here. And who I want to be in the world is loving and kind. That's who I want to be in the world. Isn't that who you want to be in the world? Don't you want to be that model of loving kindness? If you are a person who prays for world peace, loving kindness is what you need, to the energy you need to be adding to it. If you are a person who wants to see a world that works for everyone, loving kindness is the way to get there. This is the oomph. This is the juice. This is what can feed each of us in every moment of our lives. Are we in here, inside ourselves, being loving and kind? That doesn't mean you don't feel pain. That doesn't mean you don't feel upset. That doesn't mean you don't feel joy. That doesn't mean you don't feel what you feel. It means you're making sure that your mind isn't adding to whatever's going on if it's negative. It means you're not allowing your thoughts to run rampant. Because sooner or later, if you allow your thoughts to run rampant, you may have noticed the next thing that happens is your mouth follows. And then after your mouth, your actions. So it begins in here, because this is where you have the most control. This is where you get to sit in the center of your power. This is where we all get to sit in the center of our power. Is what is going on in here, so that we make sure that what comes out here and then what we act upon is in line with loving kindness. So I think I will call this talk today, how to stay, and stand in the power of loving kindness. Because that's what we have available to us when our heart is hurt and our mind is running rampant. To grab a hold of that and say, wait a minute. If you're putting yourself down going, I should be better than this, it's time for loving kindness. If you're saying you should be better than this, it's time for loving kindness. If you're saying this ought to be different, this isn't right, it's time for loving kindness. It doesn't mean you don't stand for the good in the world. It means you stand for it in a loving, kinding way. That's what Gandhi was speaking about. He didn't say, let wrongfulness stand. He said, if you're going to stand in the face of wrongfulness, do it in loving kindness, or you are off center too. So this is what we have available to us. The chance to stand up and add our energy, our vote, our goodness to the world each and every moment, starting with yourself, then starting with the relationships that are closest around you, and then ending with the world at large. When we stand in the integrity of getting a hold of our thoughts, which then stand in the integrity of what comes out of our mouths, which then stands in the integrity of the actions we take, we have now added more to a peaceful earth than we can possibly imagine. This is the power that we have within us and its impact on what happens without us when we stand in loving kindness. Soften your heart no matter what the trespass. Soften your heart to make sure you are loving yourself first. Soften your heart so that from loving yourself, love is the answer in your life. Thank you. I love you.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of